In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, a product of Market Advisory Group. It's the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement, whether it's financial, questions with taxes, Medicare questions, or estate planning. We do it all at Market Advisory Group, and all under one roof to provide you a holistic experience as you plan your retirement and investment strategies. With me in this episode of Eye on Retirement is Jonathon McCoy, an investment advisor with Market Advisory Group. And Jonathon, welcome in.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, Rick. It's been a pleasure to be here.
The baby boomers, of which I'm one of, we're about to complete the first ever cycle of that opportunity to defer taxes on our IRAs. And we talk a lot about IRA conversions, from converting a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA in an effort to help abate some of the tax implications that could come.
Yep.
We're also finding, though, that deferring taxes over an entire career may not actually save you taxes.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, the gamble that we take, and what a lot of people don't realize when initiating those first savings into a 401k or an IRA, is you're making a handshake deal with Uncle Sam, that you're setting yourself up for the idea that while you're working, you've got a higher earned income, you should be in a higher tax bracket. And then when you retire, you've got less earned income, you should be in a lower tax bracket. Very simple concept. Most of us understand this. But if the tax brackets start to shrink, or in other words, force us into higher and higher tax rates quicker with less income in retirement, in other words, if the tax rates go higher in the future, that can create a sense of unpredictability. And there are some current things that are going on with our tax code now that, potentially by the end of 2025, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, if it expires as expected or currently planned, we could be looking at those higher tax rates just by default here within the next 4 or 5 years. So what we're looking at Market Advisory Group is bringing people in to talk with our CPAs and make sure that we've got a proactive plan to see what is your tax situation today. Might it be advantageous to start changing the tax strategy on some of that money? Do you need to keep saving money in a 401k, or maybe should you start paying some of those taxes as you go? It's a very independent conversation that we have to have.
Now, Jonathon, is it a cut and dried thing? I mean, do you have to roll everything at once, or can you do it by piecemeal if you want to break up the tax liabilities?
Well, it's a great question. I think sometimes as financial advisors and our tax professionals will tell you, we take some of those questions for granted because we do it so often every day. But no, it is not a cut and dry recommendation or circumstance. Like I said, you have to be looking at what is your financial situation today? What does your income look like? What kind of lifestyle do you expect to be living in retirement? Ultimately, if you plan to be spending about the same amount of money while you're retired as you do while you're working, you may end up in the same exact tax situation. So those are questions that have to be personalized. And when putting a plan together, we can't just say, okay, everybody start converting all your money to Roth IRAs, because that can cause some huge issues as well. But the biggest issue that we find right now is that financial advisors are not giving any of this advice or offering any of this advice to their clients, and people are finding themselves 5, 10, 15 years behind the 8 ball. And when they come to meet with us, they're saying, wow, I wish we had talked about this or met with you guys 10 years ago to address some of these things.
Is there a best time, if you will, to go ahead and make those conversions? Is it something that should be done prior to retirement, or is it individualized for each person?
Well, again, it's individualized. It can be both. It can be, and where I thought you were maybe going with that question is what time of the year specifically. But pre-retirement, post-retirement, you can convert the same either way. Now, how much you should be converting each year, it's going to vary drastically from one person's situation to the next. But when you convert pre-retirement, post-retirement, ultimately it doesn't make that much of a difference as long as you've looked at what are the tax ramifications on that money, pre-retirement, post-retirement. But on an annualized basis, we recommend that people are talking about Roth conversions usually toward the end of the year when you already know pretty much what your income picture looks like for that calendar year. Therefore, you'll know roughly what your tax rate should be if you decide to make a conversion.
So it comes into play having the whole year to reference as far as when you're wanting to do it, and that's why it's recommended toward the end of the year.
Yeah, for example, we have a number of people, one client in particular, had a higher than expected level of withdrawals from their retirement accounts this year, had some unexpected expenses come up, helping some family members out with some things, and they've been in our, what I would call our Roth conversion program for a number of years now, and we had to make some adjustments to those conversions because of the unexpectedly higher level of income that they already had, so that we weren't causing them to have any negative tax impacts or impacts to their income there as well. So once again, it's highly personalized, but waiting until the end of the year is one of the first parts of that strategy.
Have you found a lot of benefit to having the ability to have the CPA right in the room with the client as you're talking about these different strategies of tax deferral, if you will?
Yeah. It's the whole reason that we have a tax team beside us here at Market Advisory Group. Our entire team with Market Tax Services, they come into the conference room with us. So when folks are calling in from the show, emailing us online, finding us on Facebook, Ion Retirement, they're coming in with the expectation that, okay, yes, I'm going to be meeting with a financial advisor, which in and of itself can sometimes be a little uncomfortable because you don't know if you're going to get a sales pitch, you don't know what we're going to be talking about, and some people are just uncomfortable opening up about their financial circumstances. But having our tax team there in the conference room or having access to them in the moment to get those answers, so we're not having to send them down the street to talk to Joe Schmo CPA who has no idea what their financial situation is either or what their retirement financial goals are. Our CPAs are right there with us as an integral part to that planning process at no additional cost.
Have you ever come to an example where somebody was questioning, should I convert this traditional IRA to a Roth IRA or not? And have you ever found the situation where you're actually recommending someone not to?
Yeah, that happens quite often, especially with a lot of the tax education that we do around the metro areas where we work here in our office as well. Some people come in and they just say, tell me how to do a Roth conversion. I need to do a Roth conversion. We have to kind of pump the brakes on those conversations to say that we don't ultimately know what your financial situation is to begin with. Let's get a better idea of what you've got going on, what it's going to look like when you're retired. And a lot of people, they may end up in that circumstance where based on their financial needs, maybe they're paying off a lot of debt, they're not going to have a house payment, so their income needs are much lower in retirement, and they're going to supposedly pay a much lower tax rate in retirement. So what's the sense in paying a higher tax rate now while you're continuing to work? That's a fairly straightforward conversation to go through with our tax professionals, is to see I had a gentleman that I talked to just the other day. It doesn't make sense for him to be converting now, but after he retires, it's likely going to make sense for him to convert to pay those lower tax rates because his income is going to be much lower. So while now may not be the time, our main lesson to just about everybody we talk to is it's at least worth exploring basically every year to see how has your income situation changed, how much closer are you to retiring, or if you're already retired, have the tax laws changed enough to maybe warrant some conversions. And when I talk about the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that's one of these sort of tax sales that is going on right now that we can take advantage of for a few years.
It's so interesting how every aspect is intermingled with the other aspect, as far as the 401k or the IRA that you've been building and putting money into all these years, and then now you have to consider the tax implications of those, and those taxes and that money that you're drawing income from through an RMD or whatever the case might be, that can also interfere or cause turbulence with your Medicare as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of advantage to having everything under one roof.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if people are interested in coming in and just seeing what this experience is like, come in and talk to us for a one-on-one consultation, visit ionretirement.com. Actually, Rick reminded me before the show, we've actually got these beautiful mugs to hand out. If you include with your questions on Ion Retirement your physical mailing address, we will send you one of these beautiful mugs to enjoy your coffee and enjoy the show as it's on every weekend. You can also call us at 316-252-8707. Our phone operators are standing by right now to take your calls, take your questions, get you set up with consultations, or get you in contact with one of our financial advisors and or our tax team as well. But don't forget about that free mug. Send us your address, send us your questions. We're happy to help anytime.
He's Jonathon McCoy. I'm Rick Everett. We're both with Market Advisory Group, and we'll be back with more Ion Retirement right after this.
When people work with Market Advisor Group, they get a feel of sense of family. There's a lot of relationships that are made and going on in this conference room, and we really take a lot of pride in that and a lot of satisfaction in that.
Every client we work with, we make a custom-made plan to fit them and help reach their goals in life. And then another thing that makes us unique is we want to meet quarterly with our clients and have reviews.
Market Advisory Group, we have a process, and the process we take people through is first to understand what they have, understand who they are, and then we put together an income plan for them and show them how they can look forward to retirement and not look, though retirement is going to be a stressful time. It needs to be a stress-free time.
A few unique features of working with Market Advisor Group is holistic in-house financial consultants. We've got an in-house CPA, Joshua, an in-house estate planning attorney, Gerald, an in-house Medicare advisor, Bill. We rely on all of those professionals for, again, additional service within our consultative process, making sure that we've got the advice and the expertise behind the recommendations that we make.
You know, as an advisor, I'm not there to sell them one way or the other. I'm there to educate them, to let them know what their choices are. Then I try to help them make the right choice where they can save money and feel confident in their decision.
Absolutely the best part of my job is getting a stack of paperwork from somebody and they don't know what to do, and then I can turn around and give them back a tax return, but also to be able to explain what they can do next year that will give them a better answer than what they had this year.
When we've got clients that are calling and they need to help out a child or need to help out a grandchild or need to help themselves out and they're in a situation they didn't expect to be in, I really relish the opportunity to help them through that, help them make the educated decisions in somewhat stressful situations, because a lot of folks don't have that type of counsel.
We meet with so many people one-on-one in this office that don't ever end up becoming a customer or doing business with us, and that's okay. But when they leave our office, we know that we've helped them either get some answers to some of the questions they had or get some clarity on maybe their own path.
But one of the things that we hear all the time is, I wish I would have met you guys 10 years ago, because how much further could I be down the road? Well, Johnny Appleseed said, when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. And so if we can help people today going forward, that just brings an incredible amount of comfort and excitement for us to come to work every day.
Hi, and welcome back into Ion Retirement, a product of Market Advisory Group. Jonathan, as we look at long-term tax planning, if somebody is just working with a financial advisor and they're feeling like, I've been with Joe, my financial advisor, for 20 years now, I've never really ran into any tax problems because we don't really talk about them anyway. Mm-hmm. That could be setting somebody up for a potential loss down the road if they're just working with the investment advisor.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up loss. So we talk a lot about, go a little bit in the direction of talking about investment management fees here. So so many people talk about how much they're paying their financial advisor. Are you asking your financial advisor how much they're being paid? And those are questions that we think are important to ask, but you have to think about the overall cost. What are some of the opportunities, costs of not having the tax planning, not having a proactive investment management strategy in the event of a market downturn? Are you having to retool things because all of a sudden you lost more money than you thought you could lose, and now you've got to come up with a new game plan? Well, loss. We consider these things financial erosions, and taxes are a big part of that. I've been meeting with many people recently, and in particular, folks who, as you mentioned, are completing this first cycle of having saved for their entire career in these tax-deferred accounts that have never had the taxes paid on them. They're looking for strategies. They're looking for a more proactive look at, okay, how much is Uncle Sam going to have to say about my retirement? From one perspective, it's hard to answer that question because we don't know what the tax codes are going to look like in the future.
Confident they'll go down, though, right?
I've asked a show of hands 100 times this year who thinks taxes are going down in the future. I've not yet seen one hand go up. No. So we look at what is the level of service that's being provided is the next important thing to look at with financial advisors in general. But you bring up the long-term tax planning, not just financial advisors, but also tax advisors or tax preparers in particular are not looking at what is your income situation going to be in 10 to 15 years? It's recording history, right? Taking in your income information from this year, filing the tax return, making sure the IRS, for the most part, stays off your back, that you've done everything, up to snuff. But not having that more proactive future look at what your tax situation is going to be many years into retirement, especially, is going to wind you up behind the eight ball. And we find that so often with people that are in their late 70s to early 80s who are coming to meet with us for the first time. They've been working with these financial advisors that have been family friends or have become a family friend because they've known them for so long. And there's just such a huge part of this picture that has been missed. And it's very difficult, even for us, as good as our tax team is, it's very difficult to make up for lost time from a tax planning perspective, just like it is from an investment planning perspective.
When a couple are married and there's disparity in age, 10, 15, 20 years, it's not uncommon. That also can be somewhat of a setup for a tax trap, if you will.
Yeah, it is. And if you think about this, one option that you have today, if you're married, we don't mean to just pick on the married folks out there, but that it creates a different realm of strategies or tax planning that we need to be talking about. Because if you're married today and you lose a spouse, you go from that married filing joint option on your tax return to filing single, or at least your surviving spouse is going to be filing single. So especially if you've got a large age difference, I've got a perfect example that we discussed a little bit here recently. Husband and wife. The husband is actually 86 years old. He retired when he was 85. This gentleman loved working, but finally hung it up after a long career. He had been the breadwinner. This is actually his second marriage, but his wife is 15 years younger than him. So his main concern was trying to provide a specific amount of income if he were to pass away for the rest of her life, and then leave a certain amount of money for his family, his daughters, and make sure everyone was taken care of. But the one thing that he'd been working with a financial planner that had sort of pitched him on the idea that, yeah, it's a very big firm in town. They've got a tax department for tax preparation. They've got certified financial planners and financial advisors, and they got what he thought was the whole picture. But what he realized after meeting with us was that while he thought that this firm had the entire picture, under one roof, the firm was not looking at his entire picture, which was what happens with this money after his wife, or after he passes, if he predeceases his wife, and what are the tax ramifications for her going to be? Well, we looked at required minimum distribution rates and projected future tax rates on her level of income that she wanted to live on, and she was going to be paying close to 10 to 12% per year higher as a single person than what they are paying today married. It's a very simple conversation. We just looked at what does she want to live on, what does he want to be able to provide for her from his portfolio, and what sort of tax rates would she be paying if she were paying those rates on her own today. And he was dumbfounded in the meeting room, and I had our CPA Pat sitting right next to me. He was a bit dumbfounded that this had never been brought up in 15 years of working with their financial advisor, and his question was why. And after the fact, we've been working with his financial advisor on some transitioning of different things and putting some more of this tax planning into place. And he keeps bringing back up this same point that it's pretty rich that now that financial advisor wants to provide the tax advice when it was brought up from someone other than them, and now they're willing to jump in and start to help out with that. And sometimes it's just a matter of, a lot of people don't know the right questions to ask. That's why we've got shows like Eye on Retirement to try to get these things in front of people's faces, because these are ticking time bombs that can really hurt you in the future.
Jonathan, share with our viewers how they can learn more.
Yeah, so reach out to us at eyeonretirement.com. You can also call us at 316-252-8707, the number at the bottom of your screens today. If you reach out to us at eyeonretirement.com, feel free to submit your questions. We're going to try to address all the questions we can in future weekly episodes. But once you reach out to us with those questions, again, a reminder to include your physical mailing address. We'll get you one of those nice Eye on Retirement mugs as well. They look pretty nice sitting on the countertop at home. So.
Indeed they do. I'm Rick Everett. He is Jonathon McCoy. We're both with Market Advisory Group, and the name of the show is Eye on Retirement, which will be back right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. By running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Hi, and welcome back into Ion Retirement. By the way, if you'd like to see prior episodes or missed the first portion of this episode, please feel free to go to our website at ionretirement.com, where all of the episodes are there for your viewing. Jonathan, in our last segment, we talked a little bit about tax planning and the importance thereof. More poignantly, you brought up something as far as somebody who was working with another advisor and had gone an extended period of time without even having tax questions asked.
Right.
It's interesting to me how we as humans can just assume we've got everything covered when in fact we don't.
Yeah, we have that faith. Right?
Yes. And that brings me to another point of when I'm at home sometimes watching TV, I'll see this commercial come on for lack of better terms, a box store investment center that says that they're a fiduciary and explains the fact that they only, they win when their clients win, but they almost paint it as if they're the only game in town. And guess what? We're here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you bring up the term fiduciary. It's becoming the biggest buzzword in our industry. That a fiduciary is, if someone holds themselves out as a fiduciary, it seems to say that they're the best of the best for whatever reason. It's not necessarily the case that everybody understands that if everyone is calling themselves a fiduciary, there's still got to be another layer of differences from one corporation to the next, from one operation or advisor to the next. And ultimately, if I can help people understand what a fiduciary or what the fiduciary standard actually means in terms of our industry, it has more to do with how we're compensated as advisors, not necessarily the type or level of quality of the advice that we're giving. It's that we're not allowed to offer specific products from either one specific brand or one specific company based on how those products or the sale of those products are paying us compensation in return. In other words, we're not allowed to get any sort of kickback from one fund or another fund, and different rates of income and different things like that for us as a company. So it's essentially removing that layer of bias that, I can sell this fund for a 5% commission or this fund for a 2% commission. Which one do you think I'm going to try to sell you? Right? We're not allowed to do that as financial advisors, the way that we're licensed at Market Advisor Group. And being a fiduciary essentially says that, yes, we are here to do what's in your best interest. Every financial advisor should be.
Should be.
Right? I mean, that's what Mother taught us, do what's right and do what's right unto others. So the question is more about, are you operating under more of the brokerage standard or the fiduciary standard? Brokerage standards is more that advisor is being compensated for processing a sales transaction as opposed to giving some sort of ongoing long-term advice. So once that compensation is paid to a broker, traditionally we see that the level of service can sort of fall off the map a little bit because that compensation's already been paid up front. There's not really a lot of incentive on an ongoing basis for the advisor to help you out. So it has a lot to do with compensation. Ultimately, what we're working to build within that fiduciary standard is that next level of advice, right? We've talked about the tax planning so much. We've also talked in previous episodes, and we'll continue to talk about estate planning. How much of that should be included in your financial plan? It shouldn't just be what mutual funds or what index or what stock should you invest in today. It's how are all of these pieces moving and working together. And the only way we could figure out how to do that here at Market Advisor Group is bringing all of those professionals under one roof so we can have everybody in the same room in that same conversation all at one time.
I was just getting ready to say, in addition to having fiduciary status where we're looking out for the client's best interest, we also have the whole house of professionals that assist in the application and planning of the retirement.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So our estate planning attorney, our CPAs and tax professionals, our Medicare team, we're outside of open enrollment now, and sometimes Medicare is kind of out of sight, out of mind. But if anybody's getting ready to turn age 65, you're seeing it. It's in your face every day. You're seeing web advertisements. You're probably getting postcards in the mail. But our Medicare team is crucial as well. Prior to having market Medicare advisors in that group of professionals there, we would have existing clients of ours coming and asking us health insurance related questions that ultimately we were not licensed or trained or educated to give answers on. And sometimes people would come up with their own solutions of, my parents have been happy with their Medicare supplement plan from such and such company. I'm just going to go with the same plan. And we would sit and say, okay, that sounds good to us, right? But we quickly realized that just like with the tax planning, just like with the estate planning, and just like with the Medicare, that there are certain limitations that are placed on financial advisors, whether you're a fiduciary or not. If you don't have this team of experts around to help you out, you're going to get lost in the woods somewhere.
Let's give away some complimentary consultations, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. We've been talking about those mugs today, haven't we? So if you want to reach out to us anytime for a one-on-one complimentary consultation, give us a call at 316-252-8707. Also reach us at Ion Retirement. You can visit us on Facebook by searching Ion Retirement as well. But whether you reach us through the website, through Facebook, or by phone at 316-252-8707, we can sit down with you one-on-one. We will bring our tax professionals in. You're not going to get charged for our time. We just want to be able to enlist the services of our entire team immediately, right away in that first meeting. We don't have to sit and meet 6, 10, 12 times. We bring the people in that we need to have involved in those conversations based on what your primary areas of concern are. That's what the consultation's all about.
We've covered a lot of real estate in this episode of Ion Retirement, from deferred taxes sometimes being of benefit, sometimes not. Also having that tax preparer in the room as we're sitting there and planning our retirement, and tax budgeting, if you will. If people would like to see more of what we do at Ion Retirement and Market Advisory Group, I encourage you to go to our website, ionretirement.com. Past episodes will be there, as well as Facebook. Ion Retirement on Facebook is there for your viewing also. We'll be back with you next week with more Ion Retirement.
This broadcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or is excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Services offered by Heidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This broadcast is copyrighted by Market Media Network. All rights reserved. Brought to you by Market Advisory Group. Invested in you. Call 316-252-8707. That's 316-252-8707. Or visit marketadvisorygroup.com.